Good evening, everybody. I'd like to go and call this meeting to order of the regular meeting of the Destin City Council for September 8th, 2015. If you please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we ask you to watch over us as we do city business tonight. Let it be fair and just for all parties. Watch over each of us as we leave here tonight. Get us safely to our families. Watch over our families and keep us all safe. Watch over our troops here and abroad, for they're worth to keep this country, this state, and this city safe. We ask this in his name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. We have some public hearings tonight, and also just to remind the public, if you would like to speak on items 6 through 31, you'll have a chance to speak after item 5 and before item 6. If not, you will have time at the end of tonight's evening session to speak on any topic you'd like at the end. We are incorporating at the end of the meeting for the public that do wish to speak on a particular item. If you would kind of limit your comments to around 3 minutes, and we'll do our best to track the time on that up here. But we want to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. We just want to be mindful to give everybody an opportunity to speak. So just want you to know that. I want to, Colonel Lombardo, welcome again, and thank you for the banana nut bread. It was gone, except a little smidgen back there, so I popped that in my mouth real quick. Very good, by the way. Thank you. Absolutely. All right, well, we get an amazing gift tonight of someone's presence among us, that we get to read a proclamation to Miss Jean Melvin. If you would please meet me up front, please. We don't have this kind of treat that happens every day in Destin, and I want to read the proclamation that honors Miss Jean's retirement, and then a couple things I ought to say about what I believe she stood for in our city that I think we all need to be proud of. We have the gift of 2 of her children. Oh, all 3. Brad came in. We have Mike, Jeff, and Brad with us this evening, Miss Jean's sons, and a daughter-in-law, Miss Dawn. So honored to have you here. And Dave, man, it's always great to have you close by, which I know part of the success tonight goes to you as well. But let's just read and give honor where honors due. Honoring Jean Schutz Melvin upon her retirement as Executive Director of the Destin History and Fishing Museum. Whereas Miss Jean Melvin moved to Destin in 1973 from Huntsville, Alabama, and whereas in 1986, Jean became the Director of the Destin Fishing Museum that had been established in the old Jitney Jungle building on Merino Plaza. And whereas Jean held the position until she resigned in 1995 when her husband, Destin charter boat Captain Royal Melvin, passed away. The museum closed down shortly afterwards, and whereas in 2002, a small group began working on reopening the fishing museum, Jean joined in that effort, and in 2003 was asked to consider taking the director's role. And whereas the present Destin History and Fishing Museum had its official grand opening on October 1st, 2005 in the old Destin Library site with Jean as its executive director, and whereas the museum has experienced tremendous success in preserving the heritage of the world's luckiest fishing village, while documenting and sharing the complete history of Destin, and whereas the museum has enhanced the quality of life in our community by providing a continuing source of enjoyment and cultural enrichment for all, and whereas Jean has given generously of her time, expertise, and efforts for the benefit of the city of Destin, and now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the city of Destin, Florida, does hereby recognize and salute Miss Jean Melvin on her distinguished career and well-deserved retirement following many years of exemplary service to this community. Be it further proclaimed that I, Mayor Mel Ponder, on behalf of the Destin City Council, city staff, and citizens of Destin, do hereby honor Jean Melvin for her service and leadership, and thank her for a job well done, and wish her success in her future endeavors, so done this 8th day, September 2015. One thing that Miss Jean, I think, has always done by standing in the gap, really, to start something. You know, Destin's, it's she stood for heritage, and she stood for legacy. And what I love about that is, someone's telling the story. When Destin changes over time and grows and whatever the case may be, someone's telling the story to our families that move into our area, our history, our heritage, And I love the fact that she's always stood in the gap to tell the story of what's important to our community. And so today it's just not honoring an amazing lady that's done and stood for amazing things for our city, but it's also taking a moment in history to say, job well done, as it said, and thank you that the city honors you today and appreciates you, that when everything could have gone away, when it closed, the fire remained strong in your heart, and you stepped back in the gap and said, we're going to honor the heritage of this city and rebirth this thing. So on behalf of us and the city council, we want to honor you and thank. I also have a key to the city that I wanted to bless you with as well. So, did you? Awesome.
I have to admit one thing, I enjoyed every minute of it for the last 20 years. Oh, but it was fun. I enjoyed every bit of it. And the people in Destin are wonderful, wonderful. And that's what makes Destin strong and good. So many good people here. And people come in the museum quite often and they'll say, what is it about Destin? I said, it's Destin, that's all I know, but I enjoyed it all. And thank you so much for my key and for everything.
This is yours as well. Oh, of course, I pulled it out of the sheet. That's here for you. And Mr. Dave, we have a coin we want to honor you with as well. We know that you co-labored greatly with her, so we're honored to have you here as well. Thank you so very much. Thanks again. Oh, okay. Okay, moving right along to item number 2, approval of minutes. Request approval of minutes of the August 3rd, 2015 regular council meeting, City Council.
Move to approve.
Ms. Trammell has a first. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Mr. Marlar has a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Mr. Dixon? Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, items 3 through 5 are public hearings. First up, first reading of ordinance 15-09-CN, adopting fiscal year 2016 millage rate. Mr. Miller, read by title.
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 15-09-CN by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, adopting the fiscal levying of ad valorem taxes for the City of Destin fiscal year 2016 and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Cassell, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
This is on first reading. If I could, for the record, then report that the fiscal year 2016 operating millage rate for the City of Destin will be 1.5000 mills, which is less than the rollback rate of 1.5249 mills by 1.66%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for adding that. Appreciate that. Mr. Cassell said there's nothing more to add. This is a public hearing. So if any member of the public wishes to speak for or against the first reading of ordinance 15-09-CN, which sets the millage rate at 1.50 mills as read, please come forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to City Council for discussion direction. First up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the council adopt ordinance 15-09-C on first reading, adopting a final millage rate of 1.500 mils, which is less than the rollback rate of 1.5249 mils.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Ramswell?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ramswell is a second. Discussion, Ms. Trammell? Okay, Ms. Trammell, no more, okay, we have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Ramswell. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0.
Mayor, would you call upon Mr. Farmer to report the second reading time and date and place?
I just want to remind everyone that this is the first reading of the millage rate. The second reading will be at our regular council meeting on September 21st at 6 o'clock here in these chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Appreciate that. Next up, item number 4, first reading of ordinance 15-10-CN, adopting the fiscal year 2016 budget. Mr. Miller?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-10-CN by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin making appropriations for certain expenditures, expenses, capital improvements, and certain indebtedness of the City of Destin, Florida for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2015 and ending September 30, 2016, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Casella, is there anything to add to that?
We have a summary, and we can read it to you, but this is pursuant to the workshop that we held with you in August relating to some of the budget issues. In August, we were anticipating dipping into the reserves because of the Heritage Run pump station. We were going to go about $500,000. We've been able to reduce that to about $369,000 with some adjustments other areas. We heard you wanted to the original recommendation was go to short-term rental, increase to 150. You requested we go to 200. We're assuming 750 rentals. We've got right now in our system about 585. We've identified another 65 that's renting out there, and we're contacting those. We think we'll be able to get at least another 100 short-term rentals registered. We're canvassing all of the websites so they would be renting their properties on and advertising their properties. Long-term goes from 25 to 50. That's consistent. The Joe Bayou local fee was eliminated pursuant to the discussion we had at the workshop. The daily fee increased from 15 to 20. We're adding just one new additional personnel, and that's the code enforcement that will focus exclusively on the short-term rental issues. What we've done on the, there was an issue raised several months ago about replacing the fabric, the metal on the, at the Morgan Sports Center. So this replaces all those fields, and we're, in lieu of using, operation and maintenance dollars, we're gonna, suggesting going into the impact fees, which has helped us, on the fund balance reserves that we're using. So that's $100K plus the shade cover. I think Mayor Ponder brought that up. That was something that he heard back from the feedback from the participants that brought the tournaments in. So that's comes out of the impact fees. The TDC funding, as we reported for the general maintenance for the walkovers and the boardwalk, is about $290,000. The TDC funding for the beach walkover for the Capitol is $112, a little over $402,000 in total funded out of bed tax. And then we've listed the total savings that we've achieved through refinancing the town center as well as other areas, and that total since 2013 been right at $800K. This year, once we finish up this evening and then do the harbor, we have additional savings in total. So I believe this is consistent with what you asked, as when we had the workshop. So we'd ask for your authorization for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. This is a public hearing, and I know there's one person, Mr. Perry, that you'd asked to speak, but after Mr. Perry, if anyone wishes to speak for or against item number 4, it is a public hearing. Please come forward and state your name for the record. Mr. Perry? And you know how to make that mic live, I'm sure. You can punch that button there on top and state your name, Mr. Perry. Thank you, sir.
My name's Claude Perry. I live at 732 Harbor Boulevard. And I just wanted to try to get some clarification on a couple of items, if I could, please.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, thank y'all for y'all's service. Thank you, Mayor, for your service, and all the councilmen and councilwomen for their service. It's a very difficult job, I understand, and many times, many decisions are critical and crucial to a lot of people, including our citizens. One of this budget, I don't see it up here on this highlight, but the budget does include capital improvements, and I think the number is $413,015. And that's carried forward, as I understand it. It was originally put in for the traffic light at Marla Street for the parking to accommodate the cars going into the parking lot. And I don't want anything I say here to take away my belief that the traffic light, fully signalized traffic light at Marla Street is vital to the success of the harbor and to the success of the parking lot. I think you all need to understand that you have a beautiful parking lot, but it's not finished. And it cannot be, it will not be occupied properly, really, until that parking lot, till the light is put in. It's too dangerous. Cars need to be protected when they turn to go into the parking lot, and as well as when they leave. Otherwise, there will be no people to walk across, which is the object of the game, to safely get them across. But I'm a little confused by the budget because the capital improvement project request includes a pedestrian accessing the Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park and as a signalized crosswalk. It also has a picture. This is on page 911 of your on your budget. Also includes a picture of the from the Marla Street parking lot, which has been left out. But my question, the study that the DOT provided included 4 signalized, at least the long term, 4 signalized pedestrian crossings. One at AJ's, one at Beauchamp's, one at Big Kahuna, and one at Chick-fil-A. Now, this says it's going to be at the Marla, at the Heritage Park. So my question, I'm trying to understand, maybe I can get an answer from you folks, which, is it 4 or is it 5 we're having? 4 or 5 crossings?
Ms. Casella, do you want to answer that? I think it was 4, wasn't it? But it could be 5.
I think we've got a combination of issues here. I do plan to bring back to you on September the 21st at your next meeting. If you remember when Mr. Perdue was here from DOT, his issue was that if we were going to wanted them to include anything into the 3R project, we needed to let them know that by October the 1st. So we're going to bring back that recommendation to you at the next meeting. The budget as submitted stands. That dollars have been set aside for the signalized intersection, but we would be bringing back to you a recommendation on how to proceed with both the safety assessment work that DOT recently finished up, as well as the 3R project.
So can you come back on the 21st?
Oh, sure, sure. But I just wanted to, is it 4 or 5? That's all I'm asking. Is it, how many crosswalks are you planning to put in?
My recommendation on September 21st will be for 5.
5. So that's one more than the DOT's recommended. They recommended 4.
Okay.
And what I would like to, due to pressures from the property owners on the west end of the harbor, it appears that the staff is going to recommend on the 21st that there be no signal put in. And so what I'm asking you to consider and have Mr. Casella and his staff consider is this, if it's 5, if it's moved from 4 to 5, maybe we could consider moving from 5 to 6 and put one across a signalized crosswalk somewhere in the immediate vicinity of Marla Street rather than a light as a compromise in this battle that's been going on. Unfortunately, I don't think, and I'm for all the crosswalks we can get. We need all the crosswalks we can get. There's no question about that. We need to get people across. But I would like to between now and the 21st, maybe we can amend this to include, because right now the budget says 1 crosswalk is all it says.
Your DOT will be covering the others, I believe, and so, but please, I mean, DOT will cover the cost of the others.
I'm sorry?
The DOT will be covering the cost of the other ones that we'll be discussing on the 21st. So please come and be part of that meeting.
But this does not include the crosswalks that the DOT is going to put in?
It's not within our budget.
Mm-hmm. So the 431,000 is for the 1 crosswalk?
It's for the signal.
Huh?
It's currently programmed for the signal.
For 1 signalized crosswalk. And I'm asking that y'all consider amending this to include a 6th crosswalk at the city's expense. Not the DOT, but the city's expense, just like you're adding one for Heritage Park, add one for Marla Street,
Well,
so that the people can get across safely.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly we'll be discussing on the 21st, and so at that point in time will be second reading, and so if there's going to be a change made, it would be then. Otherwise, since the DOT's paying for it, it would just be a matter of what we decide is our priority.
But yeah, this is the city's budget right now.
Correct, but you're asking for going from 5 to 6
Heritage Park
crosswalks.
crosswalk is going to be paid by the city.
You've got 2 issues. We committed to DOT that we would let them know by October the 1st what we wanted included in the both the safety assessment report as well as the 3R project. At the conclusion of the 21st meeting, once we get policy direction from the city council, then we can, if we need to amend any budgets, we can bring that back and amend the budget. But right now, the budget stands as submitted. So I'm comfortable with the budget until y'all have your policy discussion on the 21st.
I'm still lost, but
Well, I mean, how about, I mean, I obviously don't want you lost. I mean, clearly get with Greg or city staff afterwards for clarity on that. And then,
so what I'm asking is that you amend the budget to include a second crosswalk. Right now, it's only 1. I'm asking that you consider two. 1 at Marla Street,
well,
1 at
when we go
Heritage.
into council discussion, we've got that on the floor, and if city council wants to make a motion to that accord, we can during the first reading. Otherwise, please get with city staff and be here on the 21st to see where it goes.
I will certainly be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the item number 4, which is ordinance 15-10-CN, the budget? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to council for discussion direction, also including the comments by Mr. Perry as well. First is Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion. I move that this council adopt ordinance 15-10-CN on first reading to provide for a balanced budget for FY 2016 and schedule the second reading on September 21st, 2015.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is that Ms. Ramswell? Okay, Ms. Ramswell had the second. Ms. Trammell, do you have discussion? No, I've got a second. Okay, all right. Okay, we have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Mrs. Ramswell. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, item number 5, second reading of ordinance 15-06-CN, refinancing the bond series 2005B. Mr. Miller?
Mayor, I do not represent the city in public finance issues, and Mr. Bailey will conduct the readings for item 5 and item 16. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Bailey?
Ordinance 15-06-CN is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a non-ad valorem refunding revenue note, Series 2015A of the city in the principal amount of not to exceed $5,500,000 to refund certain outstanding obligations of the city and to pay associated transactional costs, providing that the note shall be a limited obligation of the city payable from non-ad valorem revenues budgeted and appropriated as provided herein, providing for the rights, securities, or remedies of the owner of the note, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Casella, anything to add?
No, again, this is consistent with the item that you approved on first reading that reduces the interest rates from approximately 5% down to 2.71. So we would ask for your approval of this item.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Casella. This is a public hearing for second reading of ordinance 15-06-CN, refinancing of the bond series 2005B. Note, any member of the public wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion and turn it over to City Council for direction, discussion. First up, Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make the recommended motion. I move that council approve ordinance 15-06-CN.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Wood, you got the second? Okay, no problem. Thank you. We have discussion, perhaps. Ms. Ramswell, first up. No, you want a second? Okay. Mr. Dixon.
I was going to make the motion. No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dixon. And Mr. Wood, you already did it. Okay, good. Okay, we have a first by Ms. Trammell, second by Mr. Wood. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Oh, yeah, you marked yourself absent. For the time being, can I get a verbal from you, Ms. Ramswell?
I vote yes.
Okay, good. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Mr. Warren, if you can please, hook her up. Thank you. Mr. Farmer, thank you for another job well done in refinancing those notes. I mean, another $1 million saved over 14 years. That's awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate what you're doing. I know it's not the first blue ribbon you'll receive tonight, but I mean, you'll get another one. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is the public opportunity to speak, and it's regarding items 6 through 31. And again, if you want to speak about something beyond that, you will get a chance to speak at the end of the evening. As I said earlier, if you could just kind of keep your comments to around 3 minutes, give or take, would be outstanding. But if you want to speak to items 6 to 31, please come forward, state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along to the consent agenda. I think Mr. Miller, items 7 and 8 need to be pulled, or no, we have a new name, corrected name?
Can we make sure of that with Mr. Campbell on which numbers there are that are?
Item number 7 and item number 8.
Yes, sir, Mayor.
And then what do we need to correct, Mr. Campbell? The company's name, is that right?
We basically need to add LLC to.
That's right. On item number 7, the Concrete by Charles should say Concrete by Charles, LLC. On item number 8, it should read, instead of Emerald Coast DBA Coastline Striping, Inc., it should read Emerald Coast Striping, LLC. DBA coastline striping.
Okay, City Council, do you get Mr. Campbell's correction? Okay. All right, we have items 6 through 15 consent. We can take one at a time or as a group. How would you like to proceed? Ms. Trammell?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve items 7 through 15 with the corrections on items 7 and 8.
So 6 through 15?
I'm sorry, 6. Excuse
Okay,
me.
6 through 15 with the corrections on 7 and 8. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wood. Any discussion? Okay, we have first by Ms. Trammell, second by Mr. Wood, items 6 through 15 with the corrections on 7 and 8 by Mr. Campbell. Let's call the vote. Mr. Braden? Ms. Trammell? Mr. Braden. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, resolutions, item number 16, resolution 15-12, Harbor CRA loan restructuring. Is that Mr. Bailey?
Resolution 15-12 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, approving the amendment by the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Destin, Florida, of its Harbor Community Redevelopment Area Phase 1 Revenue Note Series 2009, approving the execution and delivery by the agency of a replacement note to the holder thereof, providing for repeal of certain resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Casella, anything to add?
Now, this effectively reduces the interest rates on the Harbor CRA from 4.2% down to 2.84%, so we would recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. Council direction, Ms. Trammell?
Mayor, I move that the council approve resolution 15-12, reducing interest rate on the Harbor CRA revenue note from 4.20% to 2.84%.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ramswell. Is there any discussion? Let's call a vote. Motion passed unanimous. Again, Mr. Farmer, thanks again. I know I know that's awesome. I mean, I love the city saving money, and what I also love is that we're putting the city within very short order paying off these notes as well. And I love that we're getting aggressive. We've had some long-term debt, and the city's making a very proactive effort to go after it. So thanks for doing that. Long-term debt can be a problem when we have a downturn, and so but we're positioning ourselves for good. So thanks, Mr. Warren. Are we not using that right now? Okay, good. All right, no problem. All right, next up, scheduled presentation from the public. We have a proposed taxi regulations. Mr. Jerry White, if you please come forward, and there's a button on top of the mic if you push that, and just state your name for the record, sir.
All right, my name is Jerry White. I appreciate your time, and I'm not a professional speaker, so give me a little time. I want to mention, you said something about the CRA reducing your insurance rate. There's a taxi proposal that about a year ago, a taxi company here in town mentioned. I saw it in the newspaper, and that's all my knowledge. Then about 3 weeks ago, I saw where y'all were taken up, and then there had been a proposed ordinance. Prior to that, I didn't know anything knowledge about it. Okay, when I was 44 years old, I sold a restaurant outside Eglin Air Force Base. A week later, my neighbor totaled my car. I wanted to take 6 months off, had to buy a new vehicle. And so, you know what, I'm gonna buy a minivan, start a little airport shuttle company. It was outside Eglin, Valparaiso. I drive by Eglin every day. Certainly I don't drive a taxi cab, hello? But for 6 months, sell to somebody and move on. Well, August was 11 years ago. 2 days into owning the taxi, I realized how few ordinances there was. And I actually enjoy this. I'm one of the few companies that have a background check 24 hours a day that allow me on access to the military bases after 9/11. We do the airports, we do the military bases, and we do the resorts, of which I have 53 that I don't have a contract with, I have a handshake with, I have a business agreement. And my business agreement is this: clean vehicle, a professional driver with a background, and the lowest price in town. I've supplied you with pictures of my vehicles and my card, and at the bottom of my word. When this ordinance came out, it stunned me. And again, I'm a little emotional about it because this is my business. Never thought I'd be in it, but I'm gonna do my emotion part, and then I'm gonna state the facts and prove what I'm saying. About every 2 years, every 1 year, every 6 months, Some new cab company comes into Destin, beautiful cabs. I don't know where they get their capitalization. I don't have it. My business model, which I shouldn't be giving out to them, is buy nice one-owner vehicles. A lot of times I buy off the military bases because they take care of them. Not to be stereotypical, but a lot of these people on the military bases get permanent change of service, so they sell a vehicle in good shape. You can't afford to buy new vehicles and stuff and charge a decent rate. Again, lowest price in town. But you have these companies that come in. I could name names, I will not. 2 years ago, and then the familiar name come up this year and the next year. I get frustrated myself when I sit behind a cab, which we don't do a lot, at AJ's, at Harbor Walk, and you can see the vehicle and know, oh, come on, man, this guy doesn't have commercial insurance. I get that, okay? I think every vehicle should have commercial insurance. The state already requires that, $300,000 in commercial insurance, okay? That's already a law, okay? Before the city jumps into this taxi regulation business, I want to point out a second factor. The airport regulates taxis. Well, guess why they do? Because you pick up at the airport and you drop off at the airport. There may be some people picking up at the Civic Center, but normally you don't pick up on Destin City property and you don't drop off on Destin City property. So you don't have a liability in that way, like the airport could have. Once you license someone in that business, then I'm not a lawyer, but Mr. Miller, then you may have a liability. But this ordinance has been proposed. Let me point out a couple things. Under the guise of safety, fairness, and let's get more competition. First off, a simple factor. This has got to be the first industry that has ever come to the Destin City Council and said, please regulate me more. Please charge me a fee. Please add an inspector. I don't see the guys on Crab Island. I don't see the charter boat captains saying, hey man, got charter boats out here. They're over 10 years old. We need to cut that out. But that's what we have in this regulation. So that ought to throw up a little red flag. Now, I'm not making an accusation. I'm saying, why would a company, because they want to limit competition. I have never met Captain George Eller. I have met 3 or 4 people this week that know him, and they say nothing but fantastic things about this gentleman. I've never met him. Years ago, I read an article about him being the president of the Charter Boat Association. And I'm telling you, literally, I ran into somebody there for yesterday. I said, do you know? Great guy. So I don't think that's what I'm not trying to be disparaging. I think there might be a little misleading going on here. So you can read my note. You're probably well ahead of the game. Well, let me run down the thing, the issue. In your ordinance, you need to have a physical Destin address. Well, the taxi boat business, like the charter boat business, I'm not operating, if I have a house, people aren't coming to my house, okay? I'm not a dentist office, I'm not a doctor's office, I'm not Starbucks, okay? So why would you need a physical address in the Destin Industrial Zone or mixed use? What public purpose does that serve? I'll answer that in a minute. What I think, $1,000 fee. $1,000 fee. The airport charges $400. A federal government facility that has something happen on 9/11, and they only see $400. Next, no need to add city staff. You're going to add a layer of city staff, and the best government is those that govern lease. Fourthly, you have deputy over here. You don't have nothing wrong, but you contract out to the sheriff's department. And I read the paper and you read the paper. There's a little bit of stuff going on in our county. You need more cars, you need more deputies. The last thing this gentleman needs to be doing is running around making sure taxi cabs are being regulated a little more. I read the daily news. I haven't heard about the taxi cab rapist, the taxi cab assaulter, the number of taxi cab wrecks. Maybe I missed that page. Now, part of it, someone has said, what about those rates? We hear about those high taxi rates. Well, doesn't affect me because I'm the lowest price. And I only got 5 minutes, so I gotta hurry. I've been told that. Out at the airport, the taxis that pick up there, right or wrong, if you want to get a ride, and I don't sit at the airport, I do have licensed taxis at the airport, and I am hurrying. You arrive at 4 a.m. The first airplane, the Delta, of any significance doesn't fly until 10:30 a.m. You will sit 6.5 hours before you ever have a chance. Maybe twice a year, someone will return a rental car. But I'm not taking up for my guys and gals out there. Okay, that's the job, that's their job. Then you get out of line and you're number 20 again, another 4 hours. Then you get out of line, there are no flights from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And the last flight is 10:55. So you gotta decide, do I get out of line? So, not my opinion, not my business. Probably I think the rates are a little high, but they're not regulated. You turn your rates in. But you as free enterprise, you as a customer, when you walk to a taxi, see, this is what I'm saying. They're convoluting this around high rates. Still 70, 80% of the people that come to this area drive here. So when you come into the airport, you have a right to choose your taxi. Now, when you get here, if you're not happy, that guy charged you, or gal, ma'am, $55 for what you thought should be $35, then you have the right to call another company. When you walk out of the Harbor Walk and you see some old beat up van that you don't think, you don't have to get in it. That's free enterprise. Now, I am for every van having commercial insurance because it kind of irks me. I'm not scared of it. I am for having your rate sheet, as the airport requires, in your vehicle so that customer, because I tell my people up front, this is how much, a rate sheet. A DMV background check on your license? No question. Criminal background check? You better believe it. But this ordinance goes crazy to control competition. This is why. $1,000 versus $400. Airport requires $300,000, which is what the state of Florida requires for commercial insurance for a vehicle for hire. But whoever put this ordinance together wants $500,000. That eliminates our airport guys. $1,000 knocks out all the, shall we use, bottom feeders, the smaller cabs. And then you throw in the biggie, you gotta have an office in Destin. I bought my vehicle in Destin. I shopped in Destin. I eat too much at McGuire's, okay? Okay, it shows. Why does the public get served out of my cabs don't even sit in front of my house, okay? They're at the airport, they're on the road, or they're at my employees' homes. So that doesn't serve anything. And then additionally, you want to add a taxi czar, a taxi inspector from someone in the industry. And then there's a thing in your ordinance, proposed ordinance. These are the costs. However, they may exceed this amount. There's not a hue and cry. Now, I presented you with 3 options. You can have 1,000. I'm not saying that, hey, I'm the king of all, be all cab driver. But one was punt the ball. You're solving a problem that doesn't exist. The state requires the insurance. The gentleman right here in that green uniform can pull over a car and say, show me your commercial insurance. The gentleman right here will tell you when a guy has a bag tag light or his light's out, we pull him over. Because a lot of times that's the indicator. It could be anything. The state of Florida used to inspect all vehicles. Remember that? I know I look 28, but I'm 56. Remember when you used to have to take your vehicle and get it inspected? They don't require that. Okay? So, A is punt the ball. B is have your own system set up here. And if you want a license for $50, even $150 from the city of Destin to make this man's job easier, big sticker, I love Destin, taxi, then I got to show up, add to my cost, but I got to bring you my DMV report, my background check, as the airport requires, my commercial insurance, and a photo of my vehicle showing that it is not a piece of vehicle you wouldn't want to ride in. Now, you put that sticker on there, then that eliminates him having to pull every cab over. I got 2 drivers here tonight. I'm not going to embarrass them. One's a single dad. Most single dads run. He's raised her from 9 to 19. I got another one over here. It's a vet. And one that can't be here tonight, and I wouldn't say this one, is a double amputee. He's not here because he's with his daughter tonight at school meeting. As much as I told him, man, I got to have you tonight. He has to have flexibility for his family. Now, you see the vehicles I have. If you pass this ordinance as written, all 3 of my vehicles are too old. I'm sorry, guys. Don't be mad at me. You're fired. I can't hire you. I gotta sell these 3 vehicles to buy one, and 3 of us can't work out of that one vehicle. So in this economy, where everybody's trying to get jobs, if this passes, and for no good reason, and then the last thing, and I spoke with very impressed city manager you have here, for 15 minutes. Option 1, kick the ball. Option 2, make it a little bitty thing. Let me bring you proof. Worst case scenario. Absolutely, we just got to do this. Even though there's no big cab craze going on in the city of Destin, make everybody that has a cab in Destin that picks up also have a sticker from the Destin, Fort Walton Beach Regional Airport. Because they already have the police force to check it. They already have the functions to take care of it. They already do everything. And guess what? That costs $400. I don't want to pay $400 more. I can live with that. This, I'm afraid, I don't know who helped with it. I'm afraid there's a little bit of monopolyism. Hey, let's kind of strangle, let's get rid of the airport guys, 300 versus 500. Let's wipe out the little guys that are mom and pop. And then everybody knows there's not much industrial land in Destin. And you can answer this. It's a public forum. Call them forward and say, do you already have another business with a public address? And then limos were exempted. Do you also have a limo business? I think your questions will be answered. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Brady, do you have a question to Mr. White? Or no? I'm just a comment in general.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I think you did a great job.
I didn't mean to be so emotional. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I think you had a lot of great points. When this first came about, I was pretty much for it, you know, for what we was reading. But after I heard more from people like yourself, that has changed. The only thing that concerns me that I didn't like was several weeks ago, I passed a taxi in Destin that was probably, I don't know, 15 years old, and I think it was something, a Sweet Mama's Taxi or something.
That's a new company. I saw that myself.
Yeah, that's really not what I think we're looking for in Destin. But you have a lot of great points, and I think that I don't think you'll see tonight that this pass. I think we're looking at some different options, and I hope it doesn't, because there is a lot of things in here that needs to be changed. But I just want to say I think you did a great job, and thank you so much for coming forth and presenting this to us, because the more information we get, better decision we can make up here. It's just really critical.
Thank you. And I realize the definition of vehicle properly looking, but you got pictures of my cars, and I'm not, hey, I wish I had $30,000 vans. If I do that, I got to raise my rates. Right. And you should, last thing, if this, think how the rates are going to go through the roof. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ranswell?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for speaking tonight. One of the initial reasons that I had talked about the taxi regulations way back when was it was brought to my attention that people were being charged $25, $30 to literally go 1 mile, AJ's to their home in Old Town Destin. How?
Got to have a rate sheet? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Go ahead. I mean,
you must have a rate sheet in your vehicle at all times, or posted on the side of your window. Your thing says you can't post anything on the window, but all my vehicles and drivers, we have a rate sheet. We have it posted on our vehicle, and most drivers say, how much? Now, sometimes people are having a good time, they had a few, they get taken advantage of, and those bottom feeders, free enterprise will weigh their way out. But if you would just do some small ordinance and say you have to have your rates, or even, I don't know if it'd be an ordinance, again, I'm not an attorney for the police, again, extra work for them. You gotta have a commercial insurance, you gotta have a rate sheet. You should have to have a rate sheet. And again, most people ask two questions in the cab business. How much and how quick can you get here?
Sure.
No matter what technology and everything. And by the way, 56%, I actually get a trade publication called Taxi Times, believe it or not, and 56% of all vehicle for hires were Uber last quarter. So we're dying. We're fighting for our life. We don't need this. And I get it from the taxi companies that are here wanting this. No, I don't get it. But I get it's frustrating to sit behind someone. But this is mainly a late night thing. They're sitting behind blank cab. And I know the one you saw because I was stunned because I pulled up what see the name was and everything. But, you know, people are pretty intelligent. They're not getting something.
I think what concerns me is a lot of times the folks that are calling for cabs are the ones that have had a bit too much to drink, and so they're making the right decision by making a call, but then you get drivers picking up that take advantage of that and are charging way more than they should. And that was my thought was, you know, we need to set some sort of rate. We need to make sure the meters are calibrated on a regular basis so that they're not being, you know, charging too much for a mile saying it's really a half mile, or vice versa, what I'm trying to say. So those are my concerns, is making sure that not only is it a safe ride, but it's a fair ride, and people can count and depend on the fact that it doesn't matter if I am 3 sheets to the wind, I can count on when I get a cab in Destin, I'm going to get a fair rate, and it's going to be the same rate whether I get you or I get Sweet Moments or whatever it might be.
Well, what happens is people that call, I can tell you 99.9% of the time say, how much is it going to be? People that walk out of a bar generally ask, but we'll jump in, and then they may be taken advantage of. That's not right. So if you have a rate sheet, okay, and they call, it's posted, let's say, we got a $50 license now in Destin. Bring me the insurance and everything else and a copy of your rate sheet. So Mr. Customer calls and says, hey, I paid $35 to go to Main Street. What's the name of the cab company? And then you come in here and it says $10 to Main Street. Then you can say, hey, you have a 30-day suspension.
No, I absolutely see your point, but you know, how many people are going to go that extra step the next morning when $50 is missing from their purse and whoa, what did they charge me? And am I really going to call around and ask everybody? But I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse. You make a great point.
Councilman, another thing, and this is kind of a toughie. Everybody thinks a cab ought to be $5. I'm the lowest price. And the reason I am is if you call me and you have a lower price, really a lower price from a licensed company, I will say, hey, I can't beat that price. So you still got the lowest price. But I had somebody call me taking Panama City for $75 from the island. Well, my price is, go ahead and rip me out, $89. He said, I got 75. I said, listen, take it. Well, guess what? He called back. You know, that guy don't answer no more. Okay, so I know it's, but a lot of times you think, geez, it's like buying chicken at a restaurant for $9.95, and you go, chicken don't cost that much.
Right.
There's insurance, the building, well, there's the cab, the insurance, the business cards, the licensing, the cell phone. So a lot of times people are like a little miffed, but I'm on your side. I think some of the rates are a little high.
And actually, you brought something up that I wanted to ask city staff about. You had mentioned that I guess every cab company that's going to be operating here needed a Destin physical address.
That's what's in your proposed regulation. It says no, that's what I'm saying, is whoever is working on no home operations must be a designated commercial or mixed-use Destin.
Mr. White,
can you elaborate on that? Because that is a little concerning to me.
Mr. Cassell's trying to answer the question.
I think there's some confusion about, I think it was Captain Eller had suggested several things. Some of the things that we took into consideration and some that we didn't. So that particular issue is not included to have a business address here in Destin.
So that's been pulled.
Yeah, that's pulled, but again, and I think there was a lady here from the cab company when it was first discussed, and she talked about some of the higher limits on the insurance, and we're only gonna go with the 300,000, if I remember that correctly.
That's correct.
So, right now, the proposed ordinance went to the LPA at last week's meeting. Councilor Ramswell, I told you that it was gonna be presented to you on the 21st. Is actually what the advertisement is going to be October 5th for the first reading. So it will be coming back to you. There was suggested changes from the LPA. So right now it is scheduled for first reading on October the 5th. One of the things that Mr. White talked about with the requirements that the airport already does a lot of the background checks and inspections and all of that. So I have inquired with the county administrator whether or not that is something they may consider doing for all of Okaloosa County. Because part of the, from a business operation, if you have to have all these licenses, all this bureaucracy to operate in Niceville, Port Walton, City of Destin, Crestview, that gets very, very expensive. And there's one clearinghouse. So he was going to discuss that with his elected officials, see if that was something they could do in lieu of every one of us, because I know Fort Walton Beach is considering adopting not an identical ordinance, but a similar ordinance to what we're doing right now. So we'll have that information to you on October the 5th.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you again for your time and input.
Thank you very much. And could I please be notified of anything so I can attend? Thank you very much.
Actually, Mr. White, just 1 second, please, sir. Mr. Ramswell, thank you very much. Mr. Dixon?
I was just going to say, I do have some issues with the ordinance as it is now, and you know, I will say that the people that are utilizing the cabs, it's their personal responsibility. Check that price, and I understand what you're saying about the intoxicated people, and I do appreciate them using the cab, but you still need to check before you get in the cab how much it's gonna cost. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to be rude and say this, but honestly, what if it was charter boats? Is it inherently more dangerous to operate a charter boat than a taxi cab? I think so. So you can't have 10-year-old charter boats, and you can't have this. Please look at this hard, and I thank you, and I'll shut up.
Wait, Mr. Foreman? Wait, Mr. White. Sorry, sir. Mr. Foreman?
Yeah, I'm at a great disadvantage here because I don't have an ordinance in front of me to look at. So much of what you're talking about, I haven't seen. And so it's almost impossible for me to react to it. I probably don't need it now because you've probably already made your points. But normally we would have the public hearing after we have the ordinance. And so I agree with much of what you say, but like I say, it's going to come back because it's got to obviously make its rounds through the other areas before it comes back to us.
It scared me to death when it said 2 readings and it's law. And if it's all right, I will submit my marked copy.
No, it's, thank you. Well, we haven't seen the ordinance. We'd rather, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, that's the ordinance, actually.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Wood?
It's just yeah, there are some things in the proposed ordinance that I think I've seen that I probably agree with, but I think Mr. Casella is right. I mean, it's really tough if you have all these municipalities around the area, Niceville, Crestview, Destin, if we all do our own thing, as much as we'd like to do our own thing, that's not good for business. You know, if the airport and the county already have something out there, as basic or as it might be, that's probably a better place to start at. And if we can come to an agreement across the region and do it that way versus having every municipality do their own thing, is probably a much better way to do business. So that's the way that I would lean right now. So if you're doing that, I would appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Trammell?
There's only one thing I haven't heard that I've actually been exposed to personally, and that is the ability for cab drivers to take credit cards. We called a cab, said it was going to be $32 to our destination. We were picked up, we got there, they wanted $65. We argued that down to the $32 that we were quoted. Then they didn't have a way to take a credit card. They had to call it in to somebody else. Do you have a little machine on your phone that you can take?
We take credit cards, okay?
Because I think that, I don't, I don't want my number plastered all over somebody's cell phone.
What happens
And
now?
gosh knows where it goes, you know?
What happens now is two things. You asked a question that should make you feel more comfortable. Number one, a lot of people use Square,
Yeah, I do
which
too.
is an app, okay, and then it charges up to 5% to the customer. So if it's $32, you're gonna pay like $33.25. I do ask my drivers to call me, and I run the card myself. I trust my drivers, but I don't want what happened. In other words, you want the person in the cab doing it could be someone I hire, all my drivers have worked with me 8 years or more. I don't really care, but I prefer to run it myself. That way I know what it is and and then your information's in that thing and we don't ever see it again. Just like anything else, your last 4 digits are on the thing. But anybody, I followed it hand and nail. This is my word processor. I'm a dinosaur, that's my hard drive. But I take credit cards, because you got to. If you don't take credit cards now, you're out of business.
Well, I understood that, but, you know, after you make all the arrangements and then you find out you don't have a machine, and I think Mr. Ponder and I were in a completely different city and we encountered that.
There are a few cabs left that don't do that, and they're dinosaurs. They should step up to the plate. I don't know the answer to that unless you'll put an ordinance at the airport. I do not think they require you that. They require you to tell the person before they enter, we do not take credit cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted that addressed before you.
Oh, I get it. Now, listen, nobody has cash anymore. I get it. I'm pleased. I didn't mean to lie, but that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Seeing no other questions, Mr. White, thank you for your time and coming forward. Appreciate your comments and
Thank you very much,
appreciate your
council
presentation.
folks.
Have a good evening. Thank you, sir. Okay, next up, project reports and comments from mayor and council. First up, Ms. Trammell.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Wood? Mike?
Okay.
That's right.
I'm going to nominate Mr. Kenneth all right, I lose my place here. Vanderzide to be on the new Environmental Parks and Recreation Committee Tree Board. Too many names. So,
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Do we have a second? Ms. Trammell's got a second. Is there any discussion from Mr. Vanderzide? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Ms. Trammell? That's all right. Motion passed unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Wood, and thank you, Mr. Vanderzide, if he's here. Anything else?
I didn't neglected to say that Mr. Vanderzide was the chair of the Environmental Tree Board before this, so he is volunteering to serve a second time. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Next up, Mr. Marlar.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Marlar. Mr. Foreman.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to nominate Mr. Mark Nicole to the Environmental Parks and Recreation Tree Board.
First by Mr. Foreman. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Dixon. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. Congratulations, the motion passed unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Is there anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Foreman. Next up, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, I'd like to just say tonight that I'm thankful that we got kind of through another tourist season and the city is back to us for a little while. And I also would like to nominate Ms. Dot Jones to the Environmental Parks and Recreation Committee / Tree Board.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Is there a second for Ms. Jones? Second. Second by Mr. Foreman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Building this thing up quick. Anything else, Mr. Dixon? No, thank you, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to be sure and thank staff because I noticed this week the Triumph Street sign is up down 98 towards Home Depot. That's been the street with no sign for as long as I can remember, so it's nice to start getting some of that signage. I would presume that some of the others are coming along with that. Is that correct?
All the ones that we identified that the county was required to put up have been put up. So now our next step is, like I said, is to working on the enhancements and whether or not we want to budget for those kind of things in the future.
Right. Thank you. It's nice to see them up. I also noticed that the property around the former Destin YMCA was mowed So I don't know who to thank for that, but it had gotten to be quite an eyesore. Was that our guys or was it county? Do you?
It was Parks and Rec. Marcia asked us to, she's having a big event, so she asked us to assist. So I told her, I said I'd give it a haircut. I wouldn't give it a number 1, I'd give it a number 3. So she didn't quite understand what that meant. But
Well, for whoever did it for whatever reason, thank you, because
the crews did a really great job on that. I appreciate it.
so much better. So good for that. The last thing I actually wanted to bring up tonight was I had received an email, and it's funny because a lot of things you don't notice just because you see them all the time and they don't click. But someone had sent an email and they were concerned about the property around the post office, and they felt that it wasn't a very good presentation of Destin. And you know, I kind of took a look at it from somebody else's eyes when I went by there today, and I suddenly went, whoa, I see exactly what they're talking about. And I know that's federal property, but it does really reflect Destin. So I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to encourage better landscaping, some landscaping, watering. City Manager, do you have any insight on that?
yeah, I saw a copy of that email too. We'll reach out to the postmaster to see what flexibility, if any, he has. We dealt with the post office pretty extensively when we did the Main Street project. It literally took an act of Congress to get them to work with us on, you know, those improvements, you know, those accesses and the mailbox and so forth. But we'll reach out to the postmaster and see what flexibility they have about upgrading it, because aesthetically it could need a little bit of a facelift.
It could be a showpiece. I mean, you really start looking at it and thinking, wow, this could be a great, great center for the city. But anyway, that's all I have tonight. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've talked about it before, the turn signal on Airport Road that turns on those Commons. Coming east, can that be lengthened, the time of that? People are backing up on Airport Road, and some people are going past it and doing a U-turn and coming back around.
And we can look at extending that turn lane there.
Can we extend the time of the light or extend the turn lane itself?
No, extend I misspoke, the timing on the light, so.
And I had a question about, I know we're still doing bids on the air conditioning system at the community center. Is there any particular reason that we're putting like the most expensive air conditioning system unit that can be bought in that place with all the bells and whistles and?
Well, we retained a mechanical engineer to help us spec it out so we would get what we wanted and make sure that it would meet the service needs, and I believe that's basically what we've done. So we wanted to make sure that it was done correctly and it had the capability of cooling that facility.
It just seems like that engineer specking things out that I can't believe that we need in that facility. It just seems like what he is specking out, the train's the only one that can supply it. So it looks like some backdoor stuff going on with them to me. That's just my opinion. I was just concerned of why we're putting such a expensive AC unit in that building or specking it out with so many bells and whistles. And I mean, you talk about a Cadillac unit, this is one. Is there any way we can clean up the Palmetto Street before our seafood festival, all the trash, and get it mowed or something? It looks horrible down there.
Between Mountain and on the other side.
Azalea?
So it's between Mountain and Azalea?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
That and Sandalwood and Beach Drive. Can we look at that intersection well? There's a bus stop there and there's a lot of sand spurs. It's grown up pretty bad. If we can take care of that, it'd be awesome.
Yep.
I'd like to nominate Aubrey Santucci to the Environmental Parks and Recreation Committee and Tree Board.
Second.
Okay, the first by Mr. Braden, second by Mrs. Ramswell for Ms. Aubrey Santucci. Is there any discussion? I see none. Let's call the vote. Congratulations. The motion passed unanimous. Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Appreciate it very much. The only thing I want to do is quickly recognize, I think we have some of the members of the Destin Ford class in the back. Is that correct? We're honored you guys are here. Thank you. Is this the one thing, isn't this one of your things you got to get checked off to come to city council meeting? Well, you're going early, man. You're getting it out of the way. Huh? Yeah, well, that's what well, I felt that. We felt the love up front. We know we're honored by it. Where's Shane? Exactly. Yeah. We're honored you guys are here. Thanks a lot for coming. Absolutely. Okay, next up, staff reports and recommendations. First up, Mr. Miller.
I have no other items, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Next up, Mr. Nope, Mr. Shirley's
Yeah,
not
Mr. Shirley had a conflict this evening. He's not in attendance.
here. Okay, no problem. Then fiscal year number 28, fiscal year 16 property and casualty insurance. Karen, is that you or is that Mr. Casella, or who's going to lead the charge on that?
I think we're going to let Ms. Karen here. She's been waiting for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. You have the agenda item in front of you. This is the FY16 property, casualty, and also workers' compensation insurance. The summary of changes, and there's a lot of decreases, a lot of savings overall between the two different areas, property and casualty and workers' comp. It was a savings of about 6%. So I thought that was pretty good. So with all of that, I'd like to renew with Mr. Tom Connolly and Florida League of Cities for workers' compensation, and also to renew with Mr. Paul Dawson and Preferred Government Insurance Trust, as well as to agree with the 2-year extension renewal.
Thank you, Ms. Jankowski. Appreciate it very much. Mr. Casella, anything else to add?
No, as Karen mentioned, does save us a little bit in premiums, about 6%, and it is with both the League of Cities and Pidgeot, so we would ask for your authorization.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. First up, we have Ms. Trammell.
Mayor, I'd move that to authorize the city manager to engage Mr. Tom Conley to bind workers' compensation insurance with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, and to engage Mr. Paul Dawson to bind all other lines of property and casualty coverage through Preferred Governmental Insurance Trust for fiscal year 2016, and accept a 2-year coverage agreement option for the 16-17 policy year.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Wood?
Second.
Mr. Wood has a second. Further discussion, Ms. Ramswell? Okay, no problem. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you tell me why the workman's comp decreased $4,200? How that came about?
Yes, sir. Basically, it was on assessed payroll, which is less than it was last year. So
Just
we have
based
about,
on-
I'm sorry?
Based on the payroll?
Yeah, we have about the same rate as last year. There was just pretty much payroll. We have the same number of injuries so far between last year and this year, so.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Braden. Okay, we have first by Ms. Trammell, second by Mr. Wood. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Mr. Marler?
Not working. There we go.
Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. I think that seat warrants a challenge, because when Mr. Farmer sat there, the discounts he brought were 40 to 50% reduction in rate, and you only brought 6. I'm a little disappointed.
Well, I guess in my defense, he has a little bit more budget and higher numbers to work with
But that's
than
the
I
seat-
do, so.
We need some, that's the seat of, I like that. We're going in the right direction. That's the hot seat. So, yes, Mr. Farmer.
Make this comment, the way things are going tonight, the city council might be a little bit concerned about being cut.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen, for everything. Appreciate it very much. Well done. All right, next up, number 29, recommended regulations for outdoor storage and parking in residential neighborhoods. Mr. Casella?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a continuation of the code action plan, compliance action plan that you endorsed earlier this year. one of the issues that we constantly get feedback, and it really started in the stakeholder discussion back in October of last year, was the need to be more proactive and assertive in dealing with code-related issues throughout our community. And we presented a plan back to you in January, which you've endorsed, and we subsequently incrementally worked through. We created the special magistrate. The special magistrate's been working through since June. We've eliminated and reduced significantly the issues associated with the solid waste to garbage issues. One of the issues that we're dealing with now is, I know there's a lot of frustration at times, individuals who have to live by or adjacent or near residential properties that have an accumulation of vehicles, accumulation of boats and jet skis and pontoons, as well as a collection of RVs and trailers and so forth. And so what we've tried to present to you is some suggested criteria, because for the most part, we can deal with vehicles that, motorized vehicles that are inoperable and do not have valid registrations and tags. The challenge we have, and the complaints that we hear a lot, is related to the other types of vehicles that clutter up somebody's front yard. Literally, in some cases, have sat there for decades. I think in some cases it's their final resting spot. They haven't moved in some of these boats. I'm not sure you'd ever want to put them near water again. So what we've got is, and we can go through with you and show you visually what we're trying to deal with and what we're recommending to you. But we're not recommending eliminating or preventing anybody from having an RV, or preventing somebody from having a boat or a trailer. We think those are appropriate. We think we can limit those. If you desire to have a collection of them, you need to put them in your rear yard and basically hide them from the street view. But you could put one boat, one operable boat, one RV, as well as a trailer in your side yard into an improved, not an approved driveway or location. So I think it'd be easier if we walk you through this. I don't know if David or Ken, you want to do that, but to show what we're trying to accomplish in this, and then y'all can answer any questions you may have.
I'm going to move to this seat.
Oh, yeah, baby, come on.
That's the saving money seat.
That's the elimination
I don't
seat.
know. Like what Mr. Casella provided, and we provided some of these images, and the version, I think we did some handouts for you, and there's page numbers on there, but as you read in the staff report, it was based on some original criteria of the one. It's based on the one number of each one of these type of vehicles. So these first series are what would be prohibited, and these are just examples of when we did a sweep of our city and came across these.
Mr. Glander?
Yes, sir.
Pardon me for interrupting. If a council member has a question as you're going through, would that be appropriate?
I think so. I think it's
Okay,
just
I know Mr. Wood had a question, but actually Mr. Braden's light was on first. Do you want to, is this a question about this picture, or you want to come back to your question in a little bit? Oh, it wasn't before,
I do
sorry
have
about
a
that.
question
Sorry
later,
about-
but.
Okay, Mr. Wood, go ahead.
Okay, good. Let's go to that first picture right there. So we got 4 items, and that's prohibited. Now, if I break that picture down, I believe that motorhome, if it's properly tagged and registered, would be legal where it's at right now in that picture, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, if I move that boat 2 items over to the other side of that motorhome, and it was properly tagged and registered, it would also be allowed either on that driveway or on the side yard closest to the driveway, correct?
That's correct.
And those other 2 things would then have to go someplace.
Right. It could be on the side yard or then put in the rear yard or stored elsewhere.
Okay? And that's the first picture. Okay, next.
Okay, I have a question now to follow up on that.
Sure.
My understanding was that if it's in the side yard has to be improved. Is that correct? Like on gravel or a driveway?
No, No, we did not require that. The side yard had to be improved, just the, where we had the access and vehicle use area. So that mainly your driveway, what I would term as your driveway. But the side yard area could be grass or.
Yeah, if you see some of the pictures in the later where there are actually boats are on the side yard and it's not improved.
I'll ponder, okay.
Good choice. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So in that first picture, at the end of the day, if we pass what we're talking about here, that RV and that boat can both be in that driveway if they are properly tagged and registered, or what, can one of them be in the side yard and one be on the driveway or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, and the side yard is the side of your house closest to your improved driveway, not
Correct.
the other side.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a corner lot, you get the side closest to the driveway, not both sides if you have that. All right, gotcha, okay?
Yes, sir.
Good enough, thank you.
All right, well, hold on a second. Mr. Dixon?
I have a question about that scenario there, and I've seen that many times, and believe me, there's more there than what that picture shows. But what my question is that if the RV itself there was licensed and operable and all that, can the boat, if all the other stuff was gone, can the boat stay where it's at, or does it gotta be on this side of the house?
We are proposing it to be on the side or located in the rear, not visible if it.
All right, so visible from the street. What you're saying is that they can't be in the yard? Is that what we're saying?
Basically, we're proposing, it was based on the original, is it's the front yard area that would be free of all these items.
I think.
Isn't this the front yard?
That's why it would be prohibited.
Okay, that I understand. So by side yard, and Tuffy, I don't mean to step on you,
I'm
but
still working on this, go ahead.
so by side yard, are we then saying the side of the house as opposed to the front yard side, if you get my drift? I know that sounds crazy, but semantics are important, especially when you're drafting an ordinance.
Let Ken explain, give us a definition of front yard and side yard, so everybody, because this is, we want clear policy direction, because this is, when we start going out and memorializing this in the code, we want to make sure everybody understands exactly what we're doing and what we're not doing. Because there's a lot of frustration out there, and we want to make sure we understand what direction you want us to proceed in. So Ken, you want to explain?
Yeah. This would be the improved driveway access way. I don't know if you can see this image. Laser pointer or? Okay.
You want to grab the mic, speak right here, Ken? And then Doug can drive? Or you can grab the handheld if you want. Turn it on. You got to turn it on, yeah, sorry.
All right. So this would be your improved driveway, access way. To the right of that, the nearest side is going to be this side of the house. And that's where these boats, vessels, RVs, trailers would be proposed to be located. These cars in the front yard would not allow to be there. They would either have to be in the improved access way or driveway or off to the side. So that hopefully explains to you.
Or in the back.
Yes,
Right.
the front yard is to the left of the driveway, and the side yard's to the right.
The closest side yard to the driveway. It wouldn't be this side of the house because that's not closest to the driveway.
We got several, Mr. Foreman first.
And it could not be on the right of way. I mean, it couldn't be forward of the house on the city's right of way.
Do I still have
We have some specific
Okay, you're-
requirements
sorry
for
about
what is allowed to be parked
checked
within
out.
the right-of-way, and those are basically temporary and occasional instances, unless signed specifically, and those are specific neighborhoods and areas that we have those issues with.
One of the things that occurs to me is there are areas that don't yet have sidewalks, and it's not readily identified as being, let's say, on the right-of-way or in the premises of the house. So what I'm saying is, it could not be located on the city's right-of-way, even if there was no sidewalk there.
I think that's just, we got to figure out.
Yeah, this is, we're recommending not in the front yard, in the side yard, and not out in the right-of-way.
Mr. Dixon?
I really wasn't aware of the side yard. My understanding was that they could have two, like a motor home or a travel trailer and a boat, and those could be visible from the street. But it didn't, I didn't see where it said that if you had two things, one of those things had to be in the side of the house. Now, when we say side of the house, are we talking about behind a fence, or are we talking about just on the side of the house? And then my next question is, what do we do with some of these that have basically a 7.5 foot setback that don't have the room for that? I mean, that don't have that kind of room for putting it on the side. Well, I mean, what do we do then?
There are going to be some constraints, especially with the smaller lots.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna work that out yet. We gotta work on that, I think. So.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I was under the impression that they could have a boat, a utility trailer, and a motorhome in the front. We changing that now?
No, they can have them on their driveway and or in the side yard.
Right. A motorhome of some type, utility trailer,
And a boat.
Can all
Yes.
be in the front, or in the side yard, or in the driveway. Everything else has got to be in the backyard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Wood?
Okay, we're fixing to have this conversation all over again now. Because now I'm
you're
confused. I thought you got, so now am I being told on the driveway or the side yard, I can have a motorhome, a boat, or something else? And/or. So I can have maybe three things
Sure.
up there,
If there's room.
as long as I have one of each thing. But if I have two of one thing, I can't do that.
That's
how it's-
correct.
That's how it's currently recommended.
Even though my second thing is probably smaller than the one motorhome, I can't do that.
That's why we're having this discussion. That right now, one boat, one RV, one trailer.
But if it's behind a fence, you can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. If you're behind the fence, you could do more.
Ms. Trammell?
Okay, go back to that page 6, that one you were showing, that had the cars in the front yard. Okay, now, personally, I don't know where the side yard is. I'm just assuming it's beside that car on the right. If we're going to pile everything on that side and my house is on the right, you've just junked up my property line without putting a fence there to indicate that it's your business, not mine. So if we're going to put anything on the side yard, then the side yard should be fenced from the property next to it so that I don't have to look at it. And what we have to remember is all these pictures we're talking about here that can have one of everything, you have to remember they've got two cars that they're driving back and forth to work. So now we have a trailer, a motorhome, a boat, and two cars all parked in front. So I don't know that we've done anything to help ourselves. So somehow we're going to have to look at that again.
It's a start, and I'm not saying I can tell you, I've talked with every one of y'all privately. Y'all have very different ideas how to solve this issue. That's why we're having this discussion. Y'all need to reach consensus amongst yourself, and then code enforcement will enforce it. But I think there's expectations out there that we've got tools in the toolbox that we just don't have.
Well, to continue on, I will tell you that, you know, I've dealt with an issue for several years, and putting it in the backyard is not the answer. In some cases, in the one particular one that is something I've watched for years and years and years, they now have, I don't know what that vine is, it looks like kudzu that's it's growing through the windows and over the doors and around the cars, and the neighbor's now putting up a fence next door because the rats are coming in, but it's in the backyard. And there is a fence around it, so I think it's something we're going to have to workshop or something, I don't know, to get this pared down. But I don't think it's as easy as we first perceived it to be. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Mr. Marler?
Okay, first off, I got a little heartburn like Councilman Dixon has, because I have an older home, and my home has only a 5-foot setback on the sides because of the original county lot. And in my particular case, there's also a drainage area there, so I could not park it on that side. I would have to park it on the opposite side where I actually have more room due to the way the house is situated. And so that's going to be a little heartburn on the side yard thing. The second thing is that you've got pictures here of some of these things where they're actually technically on the right-of-way, even though we don't have a sidewalk. So that would still be illegal. They can't park it on the right-of-way, although we tell people they can park on the right-of-way as far as a vehicle goes. If they're, you know, visiting or something, there's not enough driveway space for temporary.
It's written occasional and temporary, right?
All right, and then what Mr. Braden is saying is that how many, you know, if you've got, in a particular case, if you've got a person who is works in like a lawn service, okay, he parks his trailer there at night, he's taken off the next day, but he puts it in the driveway along with 2 cars, a RV, and a boat, but then he's not in compliance even if he's just parking overnight.
If it was one trailer?
If he's already well, the scenario like Mr. Wood's saying, if he's already got an RV and a boat, then a car, and then he's parking a utility trailer for the night or 2 days.
As long as he's on the improved driveway and or on the side, all those things would be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the key. If it's in an approved driveway and or on the side, which is the side closest to the driveway, then that's legal.
All right, so now my last question, improved driveway. All right, so if in compliance, for them to say in compliance, if they wanted to come to City Hall, get a permit, add onto their driveway and take the whole front yard as a driveway, I know that sounds far-fetched, but it's possible.
No, there's open space requirements and stormwater requirements that would have to be made.
But if they followed all of those, and if
Sure.
they followed all of that, they could still expand their driveway further.
That's absolutely right.
And then be in compliance.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of questions. If you look at page 10 of this packet, Councilman Marler brought up the issue of the parking on the right-of-way. The next picture right there. Now, when I look at that, I see 2 trucks that are parked in the right-of-way. How is that in compliance?
The one on the left.
The one on the left is outside the right-of-way. The one on the right, that would be
In the right-of-way.
right.
The power pole
We're
is
looking
usually.
at, the example is the one on the left with the travel trailer, the pontoon boat, and the truck. All that would be in compliance.
Right, and
Yeah.
that I see, but
Yeah.
obviously this was utilized as an in-compliance photo, and the truck on the right is in the right-of-way, which is not in compliance, so that's why I
Well-
was following up on that.
Yeah.
And or that truck could be there, had been parked there for about 5 minutes
Yeah.
and leave. So that's part of
Wow.
our parking enforcement issues is a truck could be there for 10 minutes or 4 hours or overnight.
Sure.
I mean, there's a case where the fifth wheel is in the driveway, the vehicle's is parked in the side yard and the boat's in the side yard. That's legal. So you still have, and you could probably add another vehicle, maybe two vehicles in that driveway, depending on the width. So it's not like,
Or a trailer.
yeah, or a trailer. So it's still quite a few vehicles, but what we're saying in the driveway and/or in the side yard.
Now, I didn't see in here address the issue of total number of maximum operable licensed vehicles. Is that something maybe we should look at? And if you've got 3 trailers, yay for you, as long as you're within, let's say, a 4-vehicle or operable whatever. Or, I mean, I'm just throwing out those numbers, but that might be a way to kind of get around folks that maybe have a motor home and 2 boats, or people that have 3 I mean, I don't know. I just, obviously, as it's been brought up, there are folks that have 4 cars, and then they've got a boat and a motor home and a trailer, and it's still gonna look like a parking lot because they're able to utilize all their driveway, their garage, if it doesn't have storage in it, and then all the sides. So we're gonna be in the same boat unless, figuratively speaking, unless we come up with the maximum number.
We're trying to strike a balance. That's what we're trying to do here.
Licensed, registered, operable.
Yes.
All right, that's it for now for me.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Mr. Dixon?
Yeah, if you would go to page 3 on our documents, I don't know what number, there, that picture. Every bit of what you see there is on the city's right-of-way. I've seen this for 3 years. This is one of the biggest junkyards in Destin. It is within a quarter mile of my home. Every time I drive out of my driveway, I run in straight into this. I don't understand why, being as this junk is parked on the city's right-of-way, we cannot take care of this without this ordinance. What is it that we could do to take care of this, even if we don't adopt this ordinance, which I am trying to, huh?
I think a lot of that is on private property.
No, take a look at it again.
The one where the tarp may be. but
All
that-
the boats, there's like 2 or 3 boats that are parked that will never, ever float again. And I believe every one of those are on the city's right-of-way.
Is this on Second Street and Fourth?
Mr.
Yes.
Dixon will be happy to
All
go
the
back
stuff's
out there
outside the
and
property.
check it out.
And if that fence line is on the city, on their property line, then they're definitely on the city's right-of-way.
Absolutely. I also
Nope.
see the power lines there, which are farther closer to us, which would be your right-of-way line.
Well, not necessarily, not
Yeah,
all.
that's usually, the power line is a good indication of where the property line is. It isn't precise, but it's usually a good indication, because they like to go on the property line. But we
Where-
can check that, but
Where are you seeing a power line here? I know, but you can't see it in this picture, so how do you know that?
They're right there.
Oh, I see the line.
Yeah, but how can you judge whether or not where that is? I don't understand how you can get that, you know? All I'm saying is, I feel like this junk is on the city's right-of-way, and we should be able to take care of this before or even without disregarding this ordinance that we're talking about.
Our code enforcement manager just indicated that they are aware of this property and it's been sold, so hopefully that will help.
It's been this way for 3 years.
We'll
I've
go
lived there
check it
3
out.
years. I know it's been there that long, and so that's all I'm saying is that we've got to be able to at least get it off our right-of-ways. If we can't do that, I don't think we can govern this ordinance, what we're talking about here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to go back in time a little bit. I see some glazed looks from a few folks in the audience that don't know what the heck we're talking about right now. I've been on the council 7.5 years. Ever since I've been here, every biannual citizen survey we do, which we do every 2 years, has talked about code enforcement being a problem in town. Things like cars and boats and motorhomes and trash, whatever, overgrown yards and lots. Even the county recently tried to look at an overgrown lot ordinance. I think they decided to table it because it was too much dissension on defining some of the terms and how you'd actually do it. There have been numerous workshops over the 7.5 years, some recently for the Envision Destin, and we are still working on. There's been a lot of comments about cleaning up Destin. And what does cleaning up Destin mean? Well, it means something different to everybody you talk to. Now, let me use my neighborhood. I live in the Harbor Breeze subdivision off Airport Road. If you don't like me, I got the first house with the metal roof. Come see me. I have sidewalks on both sides of my street. I'm one of the few neighborhoods in town that has that. So I have a parking problem built into my neighborhood because I have short, choppy driveways, and I have lots of cars that used to block the sidewalk. And we said, okay, we can't have the sidewalks blocked because that's an obvious possible lawsuit issue. So we decided to accept some risk and parked a different way so we didn't block the sidewalks. If you drive through the neighborhood before 7 o'clock and after 6 o'clock in the evening, there are cars everywhere. They're in the driveways, they're in the right-of-way. Most folks use their garage for stuff and not their vehicles. You know, our code does not require me to park my car in the driveway. I could probably put one of my two in there. Two I would never get in there. I got too much junk in my garage, like most folks do. I've got one of the pictures in this packet is 2 boats in my neighborhood, side by side, in between 2 houses. Setback, total space 15 feet, and the boats are scraping paint. They're so close together. But it's 1 boat for 1 house and 1 boat for the other house. And by the new rules, that would be okay. Now, in my neighborhood, I get complaints about 1 boat, about 1 motorhome, about 1 trailer, not 2, not 3, but 1. I mean, I can argue these things from either perspective. Either it's too much or it's too little. Now, I wore a uniform for 20 years as a U.S. Army soldier to defend freedom. And now I feel like I'm taking it away. And I have some angst with that. You know, I don't know any way. There were, when this discussion first started, that the city manager and the staff came up with a action plan with 6 items on it for code enforcement. 6 items. The first 5 are already done or in progress. This whole discussion was number 6 of 6 items. So 5 of the things are already being done. Now, I'm not sure we've totally assessed the impact, because some of them are fairly young in their infancy. The code magistrate, which we hired, I know he's done a wonder to fix some of the compliance issues for folks, so trash and other issues, short-term and long-term rentals, some parking and noise things in the rental areas. In my neighborhood is about 40% long-term rental. Now, usually when you have that many rental homes in your neighborhood, you have a yard issue in general, not just cars, not just boats, but grass and other junk in the yard. And you know, in my yard, it's pretty easy to tell where the right-of-way is at. And usually, I usually use the sidewalk, and it's actually a little bit further than that, but since I have sidewalks on both sides, it's a pretty clear picture down the road, kind of where the right-of-way is at. Some neighborhoods who don't have those sidewalks, it's harder to tell where that right-of-way is at. So, I mean, this is a very, very complicated issue, and from what I'm hearing tonight, I don't know that any of the 7 of us agree on all of this. So how we're going to come up with something we're all going to agree on is going to be very tough. And I would hate to see, I hope we're not trying to codify all 6 of the action plan items, and if we don't agree on 1, does the whole thing get 2? I don't think that's the case here. I just want to make sure.
Well, that's not,
this is going to be a tough one.
That's not the case at all. This is being presented to you. This is based on my individual conversations, which I thought there had the hopes of getting some consensus from. Again, this is, in some cases, doesn't go far enough, in some cases goes too far. This is an issue, and however you all want to work through it, but, and I respect property rights, but some of this is negatively impacting your neighbor's property rights. And that's the problem you got, is that when you end up with 6 or 7 boats, you know, when I got here in 2003, some of those boats are still in the exact same spot. They'll never float again, you know. they can't. I mean, and so, again, if this is not perfect, if you want to give us some suggestions, we can tweak it and bring it back. This first blush is attempted, if you can put 1 boat, 1 RV, 1 trailer in your side yard driveway. If you want us to look at something different, we can do that, bring you back that, but it's a start. It was intended to have the conversation so that we could get some policy direction, and then we can memorialize it into a code if we want to make changes. If you don't want to make changes, that's fine, but when we get the complaints, about, and we routinely do, and there's, we don't have the tools in the toolbox, so.
Let me ask you this, because, obviously, we could be here for probably another couple hours, in terms of going through and bouncing off people's thoughts. Either A, we need to go, it's because of the complexity of it, and there is a lot of if-thans. I applaud the cities. We've had no standard. We got to start with some sort of standard, and I know each neighborhood's going to vary based off of that, and some more restrictive, perhaps. But do you want? I think what we should do is either just go, hey, I like it, this or not, and be done with it, or do a workshop, come back for a workshop of some kind. Otherwise, I really see, and I want to give people a chance to speak clearly, but otherwise, this thing we could be here for another couple more hours, and that's where I don't think we need to go, is tie it up tonight when we can specifically work on this at another time. What do you think?
And we can do that. We plan to bring you at your next meeting the changes to the code relating to the short-term rentals. So you got some heavy lifting relating to code issues over the next 30 to 45 days. So you tell us the process. Again, we'll bring it back to you in whatever format.
I'll defer to, there's several people want to speak, so I'll defer to council as to what direction they want to go in. I just was trying to think of a way to kind of streamline it a little bit. Mr. Braden, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I think what we're talking about, the boat, the trailer, the RV, is there anything in there that addresses that right there? All the garbage and trash and?
Well, you got a trailer there, you got boats. Yeah.
But you also have things covered up with tarps, and there's not a boat or a trailer, but I'm talking about just garbage or in the front yard. Do we have anything that's, because what we're talking about tonight is only 6 or 8 or 10 pieces of property. We're not talking about every house, and
we didn't go through and take a picture of every. We took to give you an example of what we were trying to deal with. So.
Right, I understand. It just doesn't seem like we're talking about the whole city of Destin. But just for tonight's purposes, it just seems like I would be comfortable with a boat, a trailer, an RV in the front. It seems like the side yard, just throw the curb in and all, and that would be a decent start. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Marler?
Okay, let's go to page 9. We just have a couple of weird questions. Yeah, that's it. Go top picture first. Okay. Why is it not, why are we saying it's not prohibited? It's prohibited.
2 boats.
Okay, but he doesn't have an RV, so he's got a boat instead of an RV.
That was Councilman Wood's point earlier.
Yeah, okay. So technically it would be in compliance if he had, because it's parked nice and neatly.
Yeah, we wanted to show you the whole spectrum of how this could be applied.
All right, and what is in the picture on the bottom picture that's not compliant? I can't.
That's not the side yard.
Yeah, but what's in the front of the garage is what I'm trying to figure out.
This picture right here, Councilman Marl?
Yeah, the bottom picture, yeah.
There's 2 boats there in the side yard.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see the boats now. Okay, the palm trees are hiding them. All right, and then if we go back over to page, sorry about that, but to page 2, because this is in my neighborhood, and I know the owner, but in a technical sense, he is in the side yard, but it's a corner lot, so we're going to have to figure out what to do with the land. Mr. Woods mentioned corner lots earlier, too.
Understand.
Because top picture, page 2.
That's not a corner lot.
Actually, it is. No, the top one is too. If you actually go and look, it's right there at the curve at Kelly.
This is on 3rd Avenue.
Yeah, the one on the bottom is on 3rd Avenue. The top picture is at the corner, is at the curve at Kelly. And that actually is technically his side yard, because it's a corner lot and the way the house faces, because the original owner of the house built a double garage, built a double or triple garage there. You understand? You see what I'm talking about? If you look at the position of the house and the position of the driveway, he's actually on the side yard. So I don't know, he's got more than he needs there, but it is on the side yard. It's just the way that lot is made. And then, and I agree with, and the bottom one's the same way, yeah, because it is on a corner lot.
Are you okay, assuming that we reconcile the issue with the corner lots? One boat, one trailer, one RV?
Yes, I'm fine with that. Or 2 boats and no RV or have something like that, yeah.
There you go.
I mean, is there consensus? You want to do 3?
Any
No,
combination of 3?
Like a
you're doing
maximum
5.
number of operable licensed registered vehicles.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
3?
3 of whatever
You
it
don't
is
care what they
have.
are. They could be 3 boats.
Right,
As long as they're licensed and in the
License
spot.
operable.
yes, maximum number.
And cars.
We're dealing with RVs, trailers, boats. 3 of those. However they want to mix them. I could have 3 RVs. You're okay with that?
As long as they don't interfere with the cars, I guess.
No, we'll still do the. One RV? What happens if it's a pop-up?
That's a tent.
It's a good question.
We're gonna start splitting
They're
real
gonna-
hairs here.
They're gonna come up. That's a good question.
I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to.
So then maybe we say 1 RV and then 2 other operable licensed vehicles for a total of 3 max.
I'm good with that. Y'all good with that?
Yeah, but I've got a question. Vehicles or vessels?
Jim?
Wait, we got,
The question is on licensing. It's been my understanding, and
Mike.
I've been paying for a renewal every year as long as I've lived. And yet we're talking substantially in here of vehicles that are not properly licensed in that year. Now, is there a law or isn't there that requires them to have a license on a vehicle or a boat?
A vehicle that has to be operable and licensed, right? A boat we don't have that tool. What we're saying, it'd be registered and a tag on it. If it's a RV trailer, so
It has to have a tag on it, which is current.
yeah. And they have to have the boater's registration on it. We can't demonstrate that a boat is operable because in a lot of cases they're
I
water
don't care
cooled.
about that. If
Yeah.
they've paid if they've paid for the tag and they've paid for the registration,
Then it's legal.
then I'm happy.
That's what we would require.
Okay.
So 1 RV and 2 others, and they can have 2 trailers, 2 boats, side yard or the driveway. We good?
Good with that.
Mr. Dixon?
Just for the people in the audience that are here and listening to this tonight, we've been dealing with this issue for a long time, and what happens with properties that basically are run down, that basically use them as a junkyard, it brings the property values down all the way around, everywhere in that neighborhood. You know, we're all losing because of this, and, you know, I understand that some of the people that have this stuff may be hoarders, but if they're gonna be hoarders, they can be hoarders inside their house, and we don't have to look at that. So what we're trying to do is do everything possible we can to clean up some of this stuff that's out there that absolutely has no use to anybody, but I guess people just, 1, don't have the ability to get rid of it, or 2, that blocks their view of everything so they don't see the stuff that could be around their house. So I think it's time that we do something here. It's long past time, in my opinion. We've been hit on this from our stakeholders meeting, from everything that I hear out there in the public. It is that we have too much junk around within our jurisdiction, and I absolutely agree with it, although I do understand that we're going to have some problems with it, such as the property that's in Coventry Corners that is only 40-foot wide lots. I don't know what we're going to do with that. But we got to be able to come up with something reasonable and to be able to get rid of some of this junk. And I'm all for it. I'm ready to vote anytime we're doing it, and I think that it's something absolutely necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Ramswell?
I agree wholeheartedly with what both Councilman Dixon said, and earlier I actually liked what Councilman Braden said, and maybe that's another point. I don't know if we want to address it or not. He had mentioned he was opposed to anything in his side yard, just to keep it in the driveway or some improved thing. But I'm in favor of that. I think that's going to help significantly, but we'll see what the rest of the council has to say. But I think the 1 RV plus 2 for a maximum of 3 is very doable.
Yeah,
And I'd like to see that.
I would encourage you to start with that, and I don't disagree that, you know, maybe you migrate to approved and you know, all that stuff, but this is a pretty dramatic shift from where we are right now. If you just go with the 3, the driveway and the side yard, get it out of the front yard, and to me, it's gonna be a marked improvement from where we are right now. It's not perfect, but it's a really, really good start.
Certainly. And with that being said, Councilman Braden also brought up the point about trash and visible storage, and I thought that was something we had all, or not we all, but I know I had discussed
We can
with
deal
you.
with that. Don't worry about, we can handle the trash and storage. In fact, we've recently had an individual to the special magistrate. So there's tools in the toolbox to deal with it. And I know there's individual frustrations with some of those properties, but, you know, we have the tools to deal with that one. The one that we've not had the tools is the boats, trailers, and RVs. But if you give us that policy direction, we can make some pretty good progress with that here in short order.
So definitively, there is something on the books currently that says no exterior storage visible to the street.
Well, it's not.
It's not worded that way.
It's not worded that way. It's got to be pretty egregious, but we do have some tools and some issues.
It's accumulation of trash and debris is the code language.
But my trash is someone else's treasure, and someone else's treasure, you know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Vice versa.
That gets a little bit more subjective, and if we need to tighten that up, we can do that. But and that's why it goes to special magistrate, and he can make the decision based on what he's seeing, whether or not there's too much of it. You can't eliminate it all, but you can make some pretty good improvement.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, if you can do a basic standard of 3 items, as long as that 3 contains 2 of any one item in the driveway or the side yard, I can swallow hard and do that. Anything less than that, I'll vote no.
All right, so
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Trammell?
one's an RV, and the other 2 can
Be 2 boats, 2, whatever it is, then I can do that.
Okay.
Driveway or side yard.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Trammell?
And that does not include their 2 vehicles they use for work every day?
Roger.
So you're looking at a total of 5 in a driveway. Well, my driveway's 100 feet long, we could do that.
Yeah.
I don't know many people that could. I really don't. But I think what also needs to be said here is that there are properties, I know there's at least 2 on Mountain Drive, that do store these extra vehicles. And I think we need to start encouraging or incentivizing or whatever we can do to get people to start using those instead of their front yards. And I'd like to see something related to that if we could work something out there. If nothing else, tell them where they're located. I mean, a list of locations, I don't care.
I think once we start citing folks, we'll be encouraging them. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Mr. Foreman?
I agree with the consensus here. 3, 2 of one kind, and 1.
I think we're good.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Dixon?
Yes, I agree with the 3 and 2 of one kind and 1, as Mr. Foreman said. Also, I just wanted to make sure that in this meeting tonight that we can start addressing this stuff that's on our right-of-ways. Back to that. So I'm reinforcing that, and I'm asking to please, let's take a look at it. If it's on our right-of-way, give them some sort of notice to get it moved, and it's been like that, like a long time, so I just want us to make sure that we can do everything we can to get that stuff gone, so.
Yes, sir.
And
Yep.
again, these boats I'm talking about can never float again. They've not been licensed probably in 15 years or maybe longer, but they stand there and don't know how they're gonna get rid of them. The trailers are rotted out from under them. So, but they still need to be gone, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, three things. One of the issues I have, having as many long-term rental homes in my neighborhood, is I'll have a new family come in to rent, and I don't know what that family has to give to a realtor, but on day one, they got 2 cars, everything's nice and hunky-dory, looks good. 3 days later, 4 more cars show up. And all of a sudden, they're across the sidewalk, in the right-of-way, they're in the front yard, wherever they can get to. If we have no way to control that mechanism from going on, we are never going to win this battle on cars anyway. And we say things not in the right-of-way. Again, I'll go back to my neighborhood. I got short driveways. I've got families with 2 or 3 kids, and their cars are parked in the right-of-way, and there ain't no place else to put them.
Wait,
yes, please.
Well, no, not yet. Finish your other 2 points, if you would, because we want to get this thing going forward here.
Address that one.
Okay. And the last, I went down and visited 2 of our storage areas on Airport Road last week. And the first one I went in and asked about what does it cost to store a boat? Well, if he had any open storage, which he didn't have, it was $75 for what I'll call a small boat. The other place I went to, in order to store your boat, it had to be inside of a storage area, not outside. So most boats are too tall to put them inside a storage area, so that doesn't even work. Now, we just got rid of the Joe's Bayou boat launch fee, $30, because, oh my God, it was too much money. So now we're going to ask folks to go store their boat at least $75, if not more. So we seem to be inconsistent in what we're trying to do here. You know, we got rid of the fees, we're fixing to charge them more fees. It won't be us doing it, it'll be somebody else doing it, which I guess is okay. So.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, please address the response.
Yeah, and when I talked about stuff that was being stored on the right-of-way, I'm not talking about cars that actually operate and cars that run or whatever it may be. I'm talking about junk, you know, that will not operate. So I just wanted to make that point clear, and that fact that I'm not, if somebody has to park on the right-of-way and they're not blocking a sidewalk or whatever it may be overnight or whatever, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about junk. So,
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. One thing I'd like to ask is, Mr. Casella, do you think you have a general consensus as to what?
No, I appreciate it, and this is, it's painful, you know, but it's necessary. We'll take this, memorialize it, something, this goes to LPA.
Yes, or do you want us to bring our next proposal back?
And would you like us to bring this back to you before it goes to the LPA? So you can see it, because I really want your consensus on it. We'll go to the LPA and then back to you, and it's scheduled for first and second reading. So that would be the plan.
One thing I'd like to ask to submit is, in the wake of the backside of this, once it's done, is we will probably have, it could be a very small number, could be a significant number of old boats that people, the first question they're going to ask is, what do I do with it? You're right, it doesn't work. How do I get rid of it? Old car or whatever, is maybe make a list, whether it's waste management or wherever, where junkyards, go ahead and have a list that, hey, here's some people that'll come pick up your boat, your car, or whatever. Just go the extra mile from a customer service standpoint, because that's the first question. What do I do with it, Mr. Casella? I'm like, here you go, there's 5 numbers, call them, they'll take care of it, or whatever.
Yeah, we can come up with a list of
All right.
disposal options for them.
All right, good deal. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I had a question maybe slightly off the subject. Dilapidated structures. I know it's not part of this discussion.
Let's
You want to table this?
Let's stay focused.
Okay, all right.
We get too much fruit salad, it gets confusing.
Gotcha,
so.
okay, good enough.
All right. So do you need a motion?
No, I think we understand what you want. We'll memorialize it into suggested changes, bring that back to you before we take it to the LPA.
Great. All right, thank you very much. Next up, item number 30, revised proposals for installation of small cell structures. Mr. Casella?
Thank you. If you recall at your last meeting, you asked us to continue to work on this issue as relates to the 2 small cell towers that were installed in the Scenic Highway 98 right-of-way. you are being presented really three different options tonight. My understanding that Southern Lights LLC can put a palm tree kit on the two existing small cell towers. That's one option. My understanding those kits are relatively expensive. It would still look like, you know, a palm tree, artificial palm tree with a small cell tower, you know, out of the top. And we've given you some pictures of what that would look like. In addition, if you remember, they said if they were required to shorten the poles down from that 35 foot height, then more in that 18 to 20 foot height, they would need additional poles to be able to accomplish that. And so what they're suggesting is that we would work with the county as well as the individual company that leases the property from the county at the James Lee to put two antennas on existing streetlights as for two of them. In addition, they would put a small cell tower at a DW lift station. And lastly is one of the decorative streetlights on Scenic Highway 9. They would put a small cell tower antenna on that one. So you'd basically have the four locations in lieu of the palm tree kits that they could retrofit the existing. Or you could say, thank you very much. We don't want small cell towers in the right of way. So we give you this as options. They've also are proposing another location down in the harbor, another location or two. That requires us to work with the property owners to see if they're agreeable to that. So that may take a little bit more discussion, but I think the pressing issue tonight is, do you want the palm tree kits put on these, retrofit these existing poles, or go with the street lights, or basically to tell them, no, we don't want them in the right of way. So that's the policy issue you have, and we'll take whatever direction you want us to do.
Okay. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, there's a better expression, but I won't use it. But a cell tower dressed up as a palm tree is still a cell tower. And I just don't like the fact, number one, that it's in that location. I don't like the fact that other cell phone companies can come and add to that location, and it wasn't ever approved by us. So personally, I am opposed to any cell towers at that location. At the page that I have that shows where they've done a street light, I actually like the way that looks as an alternate and an alternate location. But those are my thoughts. We didn't want them there. We didn't approve them there. Well, I say we didn't approve. It never came to us to approve finalizing having them there. So I don't want them there, and that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Ms. Trammell?
I think I'm going to agree with the antenna on the light, the sidewalk light or whatever it is, street light. If we have to have them in the right of way, but I also think they ought to pay for the street light and the power to run it.
We are restricted. If in the right of way, we can't generate any revenues for them, but so that is a statutory issue. But if they're
we're not generating any revenues. They're just paying for the extra light. Wherever they want to put an extra light, they can put an extra light. Either that, or I'm all for saying go privately.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have a picture of what it would actually look like on a street light.
I think it's proposal number 2, location 4.
If you look at the, in the back of that presentation, there's the antenna example that's strapped to the, it's the Acorn one. It is not the two that's on the street lights, but they would basically, the way I would describe it, Councilor Braden, it's almost looked like a muffler would be attached to the side. They're 23 inches by 10 by 6, so, and that would get strapped to the side.
Well, my thoughts are no antennas on the right of way.
You what?
So my thought is nothing on the right of way. That's just my thought. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, I'm actually going to make a motion to that effect. I personally don't like how this went down. I'm not saying that our staff can't make a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes, and I'm not blaming anybody for this. I do say one thing is that I definitely don't like the way it looks now. I think what we're doing is we're opening up ourselves to every cell company that would want to come in and try to put whatever kind of towers in. I think we're opening ourselves up to that. So I'm going to make a motion that we don't allow these cell towers on our right-of-ways.
Second.
Okay. First by Mr. Dixon, second by Ms. Ramswell, to basically not allow cell towers in the right-of-way. Ms. Trammell, discussion?
I guess I have a question. I agree with that to a point. If we don't allow them on the right-of-ways where we can have control over what type we have and where, you know, what they're going to look like, for example, a street light, and we allow them to put them on public property, they could be on a piling, stuck at like the old TV antennas used to be. And is that a better aesthetic, especially in our harbor, than having it on a street light? I don't know the answer to that question.
If that's posed to me.
But I guess my question is, if we say we don't want them in the right-of-way, do we then have some purview to say that how we want them to look no matter where they go?
Well, let me answer the first. If you say no to the right-of-way, yes, that's one question. The other question is, are you saying no to city property?
That was not part of my statement. I was saying, did we have?
I'm trying to get clarity. I'm trying to get clarity on that.
You're saying no to city property?
My opinion would be a case-by-case basis, and the how it looks and everything else. I personally think no. Well, I know from working at the fire department as long as I did, there is so many communications towers on top of condos that they basically run out of space. But I don't think they've explored every avenue with the private property issues, and I think that basically they're coming to us because they know that we can't charge them anything for this, so basically they're trying to save themselves some money on the actual monthly or yearly or whatever leases that are out there, and I don't like it. I don't know about, you know, there's different type of antennas that can go up on condominiums that you'll never see, and so I really don't know, you know, if we can say what kind of application they could put on private property, but I will say that whatever is put on private property like that has to come through the city of Destin to be permitted. So I would guess we would have some input into that when it is come for permitting time. So I personally don't want to try to figure out what goes on individual private property, but I do know that I'm not happy with what I've seen so far on public property.
So let me correct, because the ordinance that was adopted in early 2010 requires the communication companies to first come to the city to use our right-of-way and city property before they can approach the private property. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, that's actually in the land development code.
Yes.
In terms of the hierarchy of
so they can't even go to the private property until they come to us first. So if you say no, then they're free to then to go, you know, to the private property owners.
Okay. All right, Mr. Marler, next.
Okay, piggybacking on that is, I know AT&T got a permit from us, or from the city, to put a tower, actually it's an oversized flagpole, on Village Baptist property in their parking lot. So that was permitted, and they did go through the proper channels?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a prime example of private and the city working together to make it look good, in a sense, because it does look like it's an oversized flagpole, but it still has a flag. It still looks like a flagpole.
Yeah, they went through our land development regulations to be stealthy best he can.
If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't know it was there.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Marlar. Mr. Wood?
Heard a term earlier, case by case. And I thought I was told if we did it in the right of way or in city property, there is no case by case. You either allow them or you don't. Am I missing something here?
What I heard the motion to be is that we will not allow small cell towers in the city's right of way.
Okay. All right.
And I would like to distinguish between city right-of-way and city-owned property. The city-owned properties really don't fall under that purview that says you can't charge for them and you can't, do something different with them. But, so you can't charge and you have to treat everybody equally in that city right-of-way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Foreman?
Yeah, I agree with the, not having him on the city right away. As I understood what Mr. Casella just said, we already have an ordinance in effect which provides for that situation so that we can simply reject the application for a cell on a city right away.
And the second option, the streetlight retrofit, and Steve, correct me if I'm misstating this, the two on the streetlights in the Crab Trap parking lots are on private, they're not on right-of-way.
Yes, they're on private property, or they're on county-owned property, but in order to permit those, they still have to come to the city for building permits and electrical permits and meet the standards of our land development code.
So of those three, the one is DW, private property, the two are on Crab Trap, county-owned property, but private property. The only one that's truly in the right-of-way is the Acorn that's in scenic. So 3 of the 4 could be permitted.
If they came to us and we voted and chose to do so.
But you don't have that. That would mean just meeting the land development code. You have the ability to say yay or nay to city right-of-way and or city property. 3 of the 4 are on private property. The one that you're saying no to is the one that's in the scenic Highway 98, which would be the retrofit of the Acorn light as you go closer to the city limits. We clear?
I'm clear, but I'm not sure that I like it.
Well, that's the ordinance, so
Yeah.
City Council has the ability to say, approve in the right-of-way and on city property, but these are on private property or county-owned property.
Can we stipulate how these appear if they're within Destin city limits, if they're on private property?
Yeah, there's actually language in the land development code that provides that they should have a certain amount of stealth, that they're not visible. That there's some language in the land development code that conducts how they might be done, which is one of the reasons the AT&T flagpole doesn't look like a antenna.
Now, does that have to come back to us for approval?
No.
No. So it's very subjective what their idea of a masked appearance is. I mean, their idea of trying to hide it is a palm tree, as opposed to our idea of perhaps liking the light pole scenario. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever their idea of hiding it somehow is, correct?
I'm going to defer to Ken on that because it is a land development code element. He's probably dealt more with that than I have.
Now, if I can inject myself back into this question that I was answering.
Yep, go ahead.
The choice was, if I had to make the choice, it is not a palm tree, but a light. I think a dressed up palm tree is probably gonna look like a dressed up palm tree. And not only that, I have some question about it being maintained down the road. Who's gonna come back later and spray the thing? Okay.
Well, can you answer?
If best I can, I mean, what we've dealt with historically when this ordinance was written, I think it was probably 10, 12 years ago. the original? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we updated in 2010.
Okay. So a lot of those were the locations on the roofs of the buildings. When they're attached to the sides of the building, they are incorporated color-wise to the materials of the building, those kind of things. Typically, over time, they get very creative in how these things, so we don't have anything written in there, it can't look like a palm tree, or it has to look like a palm tree, or those kind of things. The intent, it was pretty broad to say, create ways to make it not look like a cell tower. That's thus the flagpole. It's a flagpole, but it's not really a flagpole. It's a cell tower with a flag on it. That's just how it's evolved. I think perhaps maybe I send you our current ordinance, and if it's something that you all feel needs to be adjusted and whatnot, we can resurrect that in the future to make some additional
Sure, because what we're hearing, I think, is that they're running out of roof space in different places, and obviously times are constantly changing, methodology, et cetera. So perhaps now there are some better ways of masking it that we could address in our ordinance, because obviously we need to start looking at what they're able to do now, and it sounds like perhaps we are interested in making it a little bit clearer what we'd like to see and what we wouldn't like to see.
Ms. Trammell?
Thank you. I can stand with the current motion as is, but I have a question for Mr. Casella. He asked me, what did I think about allowing these towers on city property? And then I understood Mr. Schmidt to say we would have more control over it if it was on city property and not right of way. Is that what I heard correctly?
You can charge on city property. You can't statutorily charge for city right-of-way. You're preempted from that.
Okay, then I'm in agreement with the motion as it states, but I think we need to just leave it like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. So if the motion passes, do the cell companies still have to come before the council for city property before they go to private property?
If it's proposed on city right-of-way or city property, it has to come before city council per our code.
His question is, if this motion passes, which is the vote against city right-of-way, are they still subject to come back to us to go on the private property, or can they just go straight to the private property?
No, they can go to the private property. They still have to come to the community development department for a building permit and an electrical permit, but they don't have to have council approval.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell, sorry, please.
Okay, because now I'm confused. I thought if it was city property, they had to come to us, not private property.
City property.
And city
they
right-of-way.
They do have to come to city council for approval.
Right, okay, just to
city
clarify,
right-of-way or
because it
city
was
property,
stated
but private property is covered under the land development code,
Gotcha.
and that goes through community development.
Perfect, thanks for clarifying.
Okay, we have a first and a second by Mr. Dixon and Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Casella, is that for tonight's several recommended motions? That's the option C. So is that, okay, excellent. So we have a first by Mr. Dixon, a second by Ms. Ramswell. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. It's okay. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Anything else, Mr. Casella, on that item? Are we okay?
I think that's good. That's all we have on that item.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item, number 31, city manager comments.
Yeah, just 3 issues. The next week, you were briefed I think last week or the week before that, on the Crosstown Connector. We are meeting with the affected property owners. Letters have went out. It is not required or mandatory that you attend. They'll have, the property owners will have an opportunity to meet with the engineers and understand exactly what that proposed corridor is going to look like. So that's next week on the 15th from 5 to 6:30. We have the Norrig Point cleanup at 8 o'clock. That's on Saturday the 19th. Doug, do they meet out on the site?
meet in the parking lot at Noriega Point. CBA is actually managing that for us.
So that scheduled for the 19th, and then on the 21st at 4 o'clock, we do have the groundbreaking for the Hutchinson roadway project, and right now we would be on the basically on the southern side, and we'll get you out the proposed precise location to it over the next day or so. So those are the three events that we've got coming up over the next week or so.
Can you repeat the date of the Hutchison Street groundbreaking?
The 21st, 4 o'clock before the next council meeting.
Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Casella. Okay, next up we have comments from the audience. If you're welcome to come forward and state your name for the record. As I said on the onset, we are going to do our best to kind of give you at least 3 minutes of time, or less if you need less, but and obviously we'll be reasonable with that. So with that, please feel free, whoever wants to come speak first, come up, state your name for the record. And if there's a little oval kind of button on the microphone, yeah, there you go. If you state your name.
My name is Justin Jackson. I'm the owner of A Coastal Hospitality and Coastal Sedan out of Fort Walton Beach. I thank Mr. White for bringing up this issue today. I've also seen the ordinance and looked over it, looked over several ordinances within the area to include neighboring counties. Brought this to the attention. I normally speak to the county commissioners on these things. I've been very forthcoming with the county commissioners on this issue. What I did not hear tonight is how the city of Destin is going to approach TNCs, which is a big issue throughout the United States. And that's something that I think needs to be brought to the attention along with this ordinance is transportation network companies such as Uber, Lyft, and Sidecar, and see how we're going to regulate that as well. I can tell you for a fact, and it's a known fact at the airport, I also have incorporated Uber into my business, and it has been very successful with my customers, and customers abroad love it. They absolutely love it. It's the new way. We are dinosaurs, the taxi business, the car service business, limousine. It's the biggest dinosaur beyond other things. And I just think when the ordinance goes to whoever it needs to go to next to get consideration, that needs to be brought into effect because it is affecting the business. It affects the business, period. So that's the only thing that I see that needs to be brought to the attention as well. And to address Ms. Trammell's issue on credit cards, Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport had a policy come out several weeks ago, probably about a month or two ago. All vehicle for hires that operate, are permitted, whatever you want to call it, at the airport are now required to take credit cards. No ifs, ands, buts, no questions asked. If they don't, that's their loss, but that is a requirement at the airport, and I think that should be a requirement across the board, period. That's a new way. Nope. This right here, this is the dinosaur as well. So, but that's the only comment I have. The only other comment I have is the insurance issue. I agree the $300,000 is the total, what should be, but you need to take into consideration too, you have other cab companies coming from other locations as well, from other counties that are required to have higher limits. So just, and limos actually are required to have a $500,000 and $1 million policy as well. So, all right?
Great, thank you very much for your time and your comments. Appreciate that. Next. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the plate is gone. All right, who's the AC thief? Webb. Ma'am, I'm sorry, that's not taken into your time. Clearly. Okay, no problem. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Oh.
That's the other one.
So somebody, I'm sorry. Please state your name for the record.
It's cool down here.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Oh, it's okay. Hello, I am Captain Bonnie Todd, and I own and operate Just Sailing at East Pass Marina on the Destin Harbor. I am also a member of the Harbor and Waterways Board for the city, as well as the Town Center CRA Advisory Council. So I have chosen to start giving back to the city that I fell in love with 25 years ago. Well, tonight I'm here representing myself as a business owner on the harbor and the condition our harbor is turning into. Each year there is an increase in the number of visitors, the activities, the number of vessels, whether it be manually operated or electrical or gas powered, but each and every year it continues to increase. I personally have witnessed lack of respect to our environment, clearly posted navigation rules, as well as boat operators' confusion due to too much traffic. And as the years continue, this is just going to continue to progress into more congestion. And unfortunately, we've had a very sad year with our tourism season. I have had conversations with other captains and other businesses, and we are all in agreement that something needs to change. And that change is a need for a full-time, legitimate harbor master to watch over our harbor and waterways solely because we cannot maintain our harbor the way it's going. I have witnessed it being a toilet. I have heard of boats playing bumper boats with anchored boats that were illegally anchored because they did not have the proper lighting. If they're illegally anchored, there is no legal recourse for that owner. Therefore, I recommend that we, as a city, pursue a full-time, legitimate harbor master who has all legal authority to arrest whatever needs to be done to stop these type of activities so that our great, 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 great grandchildren can fall in love with the city that I fell in love with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Ramcroft, please.
Didn't the city at one point have a harbor master?
It was a part-time harbor master as well as other duties. So it is more of a focus recently on doing more of the proactive code enforcement. So it was kind of a position that was split kind of during the summer season and doing the rest of the season doing code enforcement.
Great thought, Phil. Please. I'm sorry?
I don't think he was a licensed harbor master, was he? He was a code enforcement officer. So,
May I continue for a second? From what the research that I've done over the years. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. If you come forward and yes, just keep it.
Sorry, I get kind of nervous, and this is a big issue for me because I did walk up on a grown man at the end of my finger pier as if it was a urinal. So I'm extremely pissed off. And the research and the conversations I've had with Mr. Baslack, he knows me quite well, and that might not be a good thing. But he was, as code enforcement officer, considered our harbor master when a person with the harbor master title was needed. He did not have any law enforcement authority, and that is what we need. Because we need somebody out there full time to stop a lot of the things that are going on. And if you've been on the harbor this summer, I know you've seen some things. And there's never really been a true, authentic harbor master from what in the research I have done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Todd. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Mr. Dixon.
I was just going to say if we don't get a handle on these pontoon boats, we could put 100 harbor masters out there, and it's not going to do us any good. So I think we've got a lot of work to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else? I think you know, but of course, state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Dave Shreve. Mayor Ponder, Council members. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I've got a regained interest as far as activities that's going on, and some of you have received emails from my wife. Her name is Retha Shreve. Some of you have read them. Others have probably dismissed it based upon the content in which it was delivered. But the fact of the matter is this: we have what's called a death hold, and it's located at the East Pass. And regardless of what anybody says here tonight, it is and has caused numerous opportunities of casualties. Now, I've looked at the purpose of this council, and the first things that I've looked at is the mission statement. First and foremost, it is to care for the health and safety of Destin. We've had over 22 people nearly drown in that hole. I don't know what more it's going to take in order to get the attention of this council, of this city, of anybody else that is listening. But enough is enough. I have heard the acclaim as far as where are the parents whenever this is happening? And I'll give you an answer to that one really quick. I've watched as the ferries come in outside of the buoys that have been posted. Some of the buoys have not been taken and dragged out to the sides as far as where that hole is. And it's the captain's fault because he doesn't control where that ferry is actually landing. And so it goes outside the buoy. So then what's happening with that hole? It gets dredged up and the hole is expanding. The width is increasing. The depth is increasing. I've heard it identified that if the landowner wants access to the property, he has rights to that. Totally agree. And the land use attorney has also identified that when he brings his boat in, the propeller is supposed to be shut off and he coasts in. The same thing when he backs out. It also identifies, and what was not identified to this council, is that it is supposed to be non-exclusive rights to that area. So putting up buoys and causing a lane for that boat, that ferry, to constantly come in and out of is inappropriate. That doesn't meet code. And so that's why this also has to stop. But what has really gotten my attention is the fact that several weeks ago, my wife and I were out at this location, the same place in which I proposed to my wife and which we have gone to every year. We walked into the water and we had a great time with some of the Emerald Grand guests, but we watched as an Asian family of 4 get a little bit too close to the hole. The buoys had not been deployed outward. They were still sitting on the shore. And this is near 10 o'clock in the daytime. The guys get out there about 8 o'clock and set up chairs. So this Asian family gets a little too close. The mother has already entered into the hole part ways. The son, which is probably 12, 13, large for his size, also makes it to the hole. Dad sees him struggling and tries to get him. Dad can't swim too well. He starts getting sucked into it. I identified to my wife, we have got to do something here. They're about to get pulled under. My wife went in first in order to help the mother. My wife is a great swimmer, and she tried to get underneath the lady in order to push her forward. Current's way too strong. That hole is sucking them both in, deeper and deeper. I get the father to get out of the hole. I pull him out. I ask him to hold on to my hand as we reach for his son in order to pull him out of the hole. My feet are literally slipping out from under me. The sand is going out, and I am being sucked in. This is not a common hole. This is a current that is now being redirected into this hole and out of this hole on a continuous basis. I have watched this hole go into a circular motion, clockwise, reverse and go counterclockwise, and then do a figure 8. If you've ever been in that situation, there is no escape except for wherever the current throws you. My wife, I was able to get myself out of the hole. It took a lot for me to do that, and I'm a fairly strong person. My wife wasn't able to. We tried to get her to redirect to go out the other side of the hole the way the current was going, along with this mother, and they were forced out into the current, out into the East Pass. Not a big deal, you say. But when you see the extent of which she was, in a matter of seconds, she was able to keep this mother calm and keep her afloat until rescue came. She was far enough into the East Pass to where it is the same route as the Emerald Grand Ferry, in which happened to just pass by right beside them, didn't slow down, but continued on their path in order to drop off more customers onto the beach. I got out of the hole and I tried to run as fast as I could down the beach in order to get the lifeguard. Thankfully, somebody picked up the pace for me and ran ahead and got the lifeguard out there, first of all to save the mother, and then to eventually go out and get my wife. I don't know about you, but Mr. Wood, I spent 22 years myself in the military. I fought on the shores for a land that wasn't mine, and I'm here today to fight on the shores for my own land as well. I have looked into the eyes and seen death taken away from a life before, and it is not something I ever want to see again. And I can tell you that whenever I looked into the eyes of this kid, it wasn't one of happiness, it was one of fear, and he knew that he was not going to make it if somebody didn't intervene. And I watched as my wife got swept out into that pass, and it is something that I will never allow again as long as I live. This is a death hole, and it has got to stop. It has got to be filled in, and it has got to be remedied at this point in time. Destin knows that the Emerald Grand is shuttling people back and forth. It is a venture of business only. It is not something of recreation. I have seen this numerous times, and I know that these people were at the Emerald Grand because I went over there, my wife and I both, and we sat and made sure that they were okay. They were breathing out of discontent because they almost lost one another. And I also want to thank the Emerald Grand. There was a couple of beach shore guys, and we call them Cabana Boys, and I apologize if that's not the right thing to call them. But there was one in particular. He knew what the current was doing. He tried to get us to go out the other end, the other side. But he also saw what it did to my wife. And he tried to swim out there. But he too realized how tough the current was, and he had to be rescued. So city, I'm asking you, do something about this. It almost took my wife, it almost took my life, and 4 Asian members that were visiting from Wisconsin. I don't know what else to say, except it's got to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Shreve. Next. Okay. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. I know, I needed one. Good. Yep, sure can. Sorry it went so long. Larry? Oh, I love that. I used to live right next door to him.